Hi, everyone. This is Jini and Courtney, and I am so excited for the month of November. The entire month, we are focused on estate planning. So that's all things wills, power of attorneys, healthcare directives, everything you need to have together to make sure that you and your family, have really been very thoughtful about the next generation. Because, at some point, we all have to make this transition. And so to kind of kick us off this month, we are taking a slightly different approach. We're going to take a more of an intimate approach with myself and our subject matter expert and our estate planning attorney, Tiffany McKenzie. Thank you, Tiffany, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And then Courtney Metcalf, when y'all see my social media and you're like, ooh, Jania's popping out there. That's Courtney, who makes sure that I am looking good. Thank you for being here, Courtney.
Thank you for having me.
And I wanted to start with this segment because, one thing that I realized after Courtney and I started working together is that we had something in common, that we both lost our mother at a very young age, very unexpectedly and quickly. And I think that kind of helped with our connection. And when we were planning for our November programming, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to talk about this with Tiffany. So that way you could know our stories and you could advise people, based on what we had to go through at a very early age, what could have been done differently, right, and what information that we can share with folks. So, Courtney, I'm going to ask you to go first, just to share a little bit about your story, about your mom passing away, and, how your family handled all of that.
Yes. So my mom passed away December 20th, 2017. Very unexpected. That morning I had spoke with her, and by about 5 p.m. We couldn't get in touch with her. We did a wellness check, and, they found her, tried to resuscitate, and she passed in the ambulance. She, at the time, lived in New Jersey, and I lived in D.C., so there was a world of distance, and all of our family lived in Georgia. So it was a lot of moving parts to try to get, her body down from Jersey and all of these different things. But what I didn't realize was her life insurance policy had lapsed. On top of all of that, she was a nurse, so she did have some assets and she had things, but she didn't have a will or anything drafted. And so it was really a grueling process of getting a probate attorney, becoming the surrogate of her estate, and then my dad became the power of attorney. But now that my dad's passed, it's like, who's her power of attorney now? There's still so much still up in the air, but it was just a grueling process for a 21-year-old to go through with no experience or no sort of insight into estate planning at all.
Courtney, so you were 21. How old was your mom?
My mom, she was born in 72. I got to do the math. I think she died when she was about 45.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you have siblings?
Nope, only child.
Okay, only child. So it's you and your dad that had to work through all of this.
Yes.
And was he living here?
No,
in D.C.?
No, my dad lived in Georgia.
Got it.
And that's a whole other thing with my father. But I don't share his last name, so there was a lot of... They were never married. There was a lot of things that went into it. It was like a tangle web.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
So tell me how you felt when you were trying to pull all of that together in her estate and working with your dad in another state and them not having the same last name and all of the logistics kind of falling apart and falling in your lap at a 21 years of age.
While you're grieving. Right.
I felt alone. Yeah. And I really leaned a lot on my family at that time because I'm like, I have to plan a funeral and figure out how we're going to pay for all of these things. I felt alone. I felt a little bit angry, with my mom because I'm like, you're a nurse. You see these things on the daily, yet you weren't as prepared as I would have thought you would have been. But, I would have never said that to her. But, definitely alone and a little bit of anger and anxiety. Thinking about all the different legal things that I had to take care of. And when you're not in that frame of mind and when someone's asking you to, okay, we need to get this done, all before certain deadlines, it's kind of like the world is closing in on you and everything's on your shoulders.
Mm-hmm. And how did it affect your relationship with your dad?
So my dad and I got a lot closer because of that. But it also, my dad is significantly older, was significantly older. So at the time, my dad was 73. So he had everything. He's retired military. He was an accountant. He had all of his ducks in a row. And so he was able to walk me through it a lot. And that's how we got a lot closer during that process. But he was really like my spirit guide through it all.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's very good. It's not often that it brings you together,
right?
Quite honestly, because you're dealing with so much. It's at a point where your entire family is grieving. No one knows which way to go, heads from tails. So it's amazing that brought you together. But I see that often with clients as they get so angry at their parents for leaving them in that position to deal with putting the pieces together and finding where things are and taking on a responsibility that they had no plan on taking on and have no idea where the assets are or how they should be distributed. So it's a good thing that it brought you and your father together, but it often does not.
I can
happen
imagine
that way.
And what I was just thinking about is, have you finished winding up your mother's affairs?
So, yes, and I think that there is one more thing I have to do because my dad recently passed last year. Okay. So I have to go see a lawyer about his power of attorney and getting the ownership transferred over to me, but I'm still the surrogate of my mother's estate. So I'm still trying to worm my way through, but I think that's the one last thing, loose end, that I'll have to tie up, and then everything will be done.
Well, good.
Hopefully.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
So how many years did it take you to wind her affairs up?
Oof. I would say up until August of 2020. So about almost 3 years.
3 years.
And how much money do you think it cost and time?
Countless hours, definitely a ton of time. I want to say I remember seeing a bill come through for an attorney for $6,000. That was one bill, so I can't even imagine. And my dad really kind of shielded me a lot from the monetary exchange of it all, because I think he knew that would stress me out even more.
Right.
So I can only imagine, but I would put it somewhere in between 10 and 15,000.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Goodness. And how has it changed your viewpoint on estate planning?
I want to get my will together right now. Like, I want to get all of those things together now. Like, I don't have many assets, but what I do have, I want all of my ducks in a row in terms of my business and in terms of things that I want to do and own later in life. So this really definitely opened my eyes to the things that you need to have in place while you're alive.
Right.
And please don't wait until the unexpected something happens and now you're in a kind of rush and go position.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You heard her. Don't wait. So, Janai, I'd like to hear your story.
So my story is slightly different than Courtney's. My mother passed away when I was 29, and we found out in, I think it was October of 1999, that she had colon cancer. She died March 2nd, so like 4 months later. So her deterioration was very quick. I was living in Georgia. My mother was living in Rochester, New York, and even before she was getting sick, my mom was a bit of a control freak. So her will was done, thank God. And because we had this short window of time, we were able to even make sure that my name was like on the bank account. We were able to go back, add my name to certain assets. I think she accepted how sick she was, and she immediately went into execution mode. And we began ticking down a list very, very quickly. So, I mean, that definitely helped. My mom was such a control freak that even in the hospital, she planned her own funeral. The order of everything. Like, I didn't have to make one single decision. Like, everything, every song, who could or could not speak, like, had to be cremated 3 days after she died. Like, there was no question. And she was kind of holding court in the hospital. The funeral home had to come to the hospital and meet with her. The minister had to come. Like, she tied it all done. But at the end of the day, I realized she was doing it for me.
Yeah.
It was all the gift for me. And so I'm emotional just thinking about it. Oh, God. But my mother was never married. So it was just me. And I have a younger brother who's deceased now, but was not worth a quarter. So it was really all on me at the time. And so I'm just grateful for the gift.
Amen to that.
It was a huge gift for me. And what it did too was it allowed me to not have to have conflict with other relatives. Because now, whatever my mom said, my mom was kind of the boss in the family, so whatever Beverly said went. So there was no conflict. Because it was like, oh, no, this is what she said. No, you can't do that. No, you can't have that. So all of that was done. So that helped so much. And I did because I only had this one parent. So I had to work it out all by myself. And this was actually, though, my mom, no, it was my first one because I've been in charge, I think now 4 or 5 times in my family. And I think it was the practice for getting ready to be this person for the rest of the people in my family. So now I'm kind of the go-to, like, oh, yeah, you need to do this, you need to do this, take care of this, boom, 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 boom. But I'm just grateful that she accepted where she was. And she said, I'm not just going to, just ride this out. She made sure every detail was tied down.
Good.
Yeah.
And that helped, I'm sure, because you
oh my gosh,
29.
29. Yes, out of state in Georgia, struggling because this is, at the beginning of building my business, 2 young kids. Like, I was so happy that she gave us that gift.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's so often in our communities that we don't plan. We don't talk about death.
Right.
We don't talk about what could be
right.
if something was to happen, not even dying. God forbid something happens, you're in the hospital for long periods of time, and you have minor children or adult children who are in college, or maybe they just turned 18, and yes, they can make decisions, but they are so inequipped with the knowledge and the know-how. And like Janai said, giving them the roadmap, giving them the ability to make the decision that you would make if you were in the position helps out tremendously. And it helps out with the conflict in family relationships.
Oh
we see that so often. So it's, I get this misconception all the time that, you're not old enough yet, or you're not sick enough yet to do estate planning, or you don't have enough assets, or whatever. I think it's all a bunch of malarkey, quite honestly. Because you never know when the day will come, ever.
And I'm just grateful that we had the time, the few months that we did, because it would have been harder had we not been able to take care of some things.
Exactly.
And you think most people don't always get that gift. You're thinking about Courtney's situation where her mother literally no notice.
Right.
Yep. And that happens all the time.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I'd also say, too, that so much generational wealth gets lost because you do not plan. And I say this to clients, especially those that are African American, that if every African American person over the age of 60 was to just start planning, I think in a generation we would close the generational wealth gap significantly. Significantly.
That's huge.
Because think about all the assets that you might not even know about, or that you can't transfer grandma's house because there's no deed, and now it's lost, and the city or the state is taking it. Things like that are so important, especially in our community, to help and close that generational wealth gap.
So I'm so glad that you shared that perspective too, because we were wondering, like, why are we always so far behind?
Right.
This is part of the reason why we're so far behind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So thank you, Tiffany, and thank you, Courtney, for sharing your story. And I think it's important that we all take this opportunity to give our loved ones the gift, the gift of planning, the gift of making these decisions ahead of time, and make sure that we transfer this wealth, even if you own nothing but a house, that you transfer your wealth, the proper way, the right way. So everybody, if you don't take anything else away from this, you have got to get your estate planning done. Give yourself, give your family the gift of the estate planning. And please stay connected with us the entire month of November. We're going to be sharing all kinds of resources with you, so you'll know what action steps that you need to take, what information you need, what resources you need. We're going to guide you the entire month.